And so we're back for chapter 13, Forming Your Art, Mending Yourself. That sounded so professional.
And so we're back. I feel like you need to have the radio voice on. Ladies and gentlemen.
I used to be a radio personality. Did you know that?
What's that?
I used to be a radio personality.
Did you?
Yes, KIUN.
That's why this is so natural for you, Vivian.
Is it?
Yes, it is. And I just like your lovely, boisterous laugh. It makes sense now.
Well, that's more of a snort more often than not. But
no. I shouldn't say boisterous either. It's like, what is it? I wish I could hear everyone giving me little adjectives right now. It's just a...
loud.
Nice full. It's a full
laugh. I get looks. You know how sometimes just when I laugh, people literally look. I'm like, sorry.
Why? Don't be sorry. I'm one of those people who, like, I'm content and I smile and I giggle, but I'm not like this intense, insane laugher. And that's something I've always envied in others. Like,
really?
Oh, yeah, I think it makes, like, people feel so much more comfortable and welcome, and it's something I admire.
Aw, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Laughing is one of my elixirs.
Ooh, that's a pretty word, too.
We have, I believe we have natural medicine that we each gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm.
And laughing is my elixir. It's also actually a body hack. I love to do body hacks, but there's no way to laugh and be angry at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Our chemistry in our bodies can't do that. You can get mad again as soon as you stop laughing, but while you're laughing, that's what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so cool.
My other one is sleep.
Your other elixir?
Yeah. Do you have a natural way that you mend yourself? I'm tying it back to the chapter.
I think mine's just quiet time, like being introspective and just kind of thinking or non-thinking, but just being by myself.
That's a luxury.
Yeah.
It's a
Some
luxury.
may say. Yeah. No, I do, yeah. Right now I'm spoiled. I'm kind of spoiled, I have to admit.
I think we all are in our own ways, though.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the first thing that stood out for you in this chapter? Like, what's the first underlining that you have?
Well, I'm on 236, and I have two little sticky tags hanging out here.
What are they?
I don't know, this kind of idea of, like, being continuously alert. You know, when you're tracking, like, it says, let's see. We must radically release our expectations and pay a tracker's attention to all the signals that arise continuously from our environment, our own instincts. And I think the reason I highlighted that one is because I'm still in that mentality where it's, you know, sometimes to think of it as like a long journey and a long process is kind of like, you know, the short-term goals are kind of, I don't know, sweet in their own way. And so it's just that little reminder that it's going to be continuously happening. You have to continuously be aware for these different signs and signals.
Well, and the other thing, and this relates back to not only Martha's teachings, but also Eckhart and a lot of spiritual teachers and mystics, in that everything is created in the now. Mm-hmm. So the attention or the awareness, the alertness to what, you know, to the step in the journey is what allows that second step.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking for the words that you read and I couldn't find them. The first thing that I underlined is actually in page 234. It was the phrases that she wrote. What do you see? What do you see? What do you see?
Mm-hmm. I really like that explanation, that idea of when she was talking about, when she was first examining the Lions track and how the tracker kind of helped her see deeper into things. And I think that happens to me, and it might happen to others quite often, is that sometimes things seem so superficial, or it seems like you know everything you need to know, but there's always a way to go deeper.
Maya Angelou, I think it's Maya Angelou, or it's someone that said, when you look at a bird, you think you've already seen it before, but it's completely different. You know what that reminds me of is actually us and human beings. When we see a person, like I'm looking at a person, I'm actually not seeing that person. I'm seeing the image I have of that person, the memory I had of them the last time I saw them. I'm not allowing that person to be who they are in their space unless I sort of break the statue of my memory, if that makes sense. I just love the idea of recreating life in every moment. And seeing through, the other thing is that this practice is, like you said, a deeper seeing. It's a deeper knowing. It's the sight of our intuition versus our intellect.
I think that plays really nicely into this concept that Martha talks about as the deep practice, too.
What page is that on?
Deep practice is 239. So she's talking, she introduced the idea when she's talking about musicians, the average musician compared to like what you'd consider a true musical genius. And it's the difference between, being forced to practice or just practicing, and then that true deep practice. And the deep practice is nothing forced.
I love that. I actually went back to my childhood cousins and asked them what I've done by nature, what I've always done, like who I am, before I knew that there was a society and a culture. And what I've come to see is that my original medicine is in imagination. And it is in a sort of alchemy so one is imagination and the other one is teaching people to play. And the meaning I made from that is that, play is our natural form of learning. So, making everything a little bit more fun is where I find my deep practice. So on page 240 where it says things I've deep practiced for 10,000 hours, those are really hot tracks for me.
I'm curious, is it worth sharing our list for this, for the listeners? Because I feel like sometimes, you can read this and until you actually do it again and then hear others or see other examples, it might not click as to how simple or how quote-unquote obvious these things may be.
Yes, I think it's important to share our list. And you made a very important point. Our natural genius is so close to us that it is like we're fishes in water. We can't see the water because it's everywhere.
Right.
What's your list?
This is a while back, and it will probably still be the same at some point. But so the things I've deep practiced for 10,000 hours. Number 1 is learning. 2 are people's behaviors and relationships, language and Spanish. Number 4, loving my cat. This was when I was stretching for things. Number 5, analyzing myself. And 6, living in a different country. I only made it to 6. How about you?
Well, you had more than I did. I mean, mine was playing games, puzzle cracking, imagination, and magic potions. I would add right now, though, I would add loving. I feel like I've sort of ran over the edge to 10,000 hours on love, on being in relationship. Because for me, that connection, that next level of engagement in the corporate world is what I do naturally.
Mm-hmm.
This is, you're right. This is a list that's so simple. We're going to make it hard, aren't we?
Yeah, it's that idea of, sometimes, like you said, that little metaphor of the fish in the water. It's like the things that you can't notice about yourself. Not that you can't, just that it's just unnoticeable at times. It was funny. This kind of brings up that idea. I don't know. I'm looking at page 241, and I loved how she introduced this idea of going to hell and back by finding your passion, because that's something I empathize with to the nth degree. I remember, like, in high school, we had these round tables, and I'd sit with my girlfriends, and we'd kind of daydream about the future, and, what are you going to do? Who are you going to be? And everyone always had something, My friend, you'd point to someone and, oh yes, everyone agreed she was going to be the teacher. Then the next person, you look over and she's going to be the news reporter. And it's true to this day, those people are these things. They'd always come to me and they'd be like, Sarah, what are you going to be? You're going to be a businesswoman. Yeah, you'll be in the government. You'll, something international. And it's always like, wah, wah. Like, it was never anything concrete. And I got so frustrated because I couldn't figure it out for myself. And my friends really couldn't put a finger on it either. And I think a lot of people get, confused by this idea of, like, what is my passion? Sometimes it comes easily to others, and then others, it doesn't come as easily to them or not as noticeable, and then it's mistaken for not having one.
I don't know where I got this from, and I'm sure I read it somewhere in Martha's work, but I'm going to say the reason for that is because menders and healers are sort of taught to hide their talent. In other kinds of cultures, your natural inclination comes out, and it's just not seen in our culture here in America. So it wasn't as easy to pinpoint a persona around it so much, because it maybe was the underlying fabric of everything that you do. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I think this idea of being a life coach or a healer or a mender in its own right translates into the future of what people might be feeling now about positions and careers and lifestyles that aren't easily, like, tangible right now. They're still being created. They're still kind of in that everyone and in the process. And so I feel like this idea of suffering, and trying to find the passion I don't know, I feel like many people still might be going through this because of the transition our world is taking.
I so agree with you, and I feel a lot of empathy around people that are quote unquote trying to find themselves or find how they fit in, because we are in a massive shift. I'm literally staring at the Atlantic article called "A World Without Work," and it's July 2015. It is today, and what it's saying is, and I haven't read the entire article, but overall, it's saying that our system is young and it's fading. The idea of industry and manufacturing is really kind of temporary. And so and I'm just going to make this up. I don't even know if this article says this, but if I were to write this article, I would say that a world without work is a world where work and love are intermingled so deeply that you don't distinguish one from the other. It's a thing that you do because you're compelled to do it, and you do it with joy, and you do it with a passion that literally collapses time. And we haven't had that in this society, because of the escape from the cubicle and the, the rise of organizations and the shift from relationships to humans as a resource. It's been interesting, I'll say that much. But yeah, we're all experiencing that. And I think what this will do, what Martha has found in her research and in her philosophy, is that our natural essence, it's almost like, what our country was founded on and how other societies still live. You are a butcher, or you are a baker. It's who you are. We are healers and menders. How we bring that art into the world is for us to decide. But this is who we are. And maybe, was that in high school, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in high school, we just didn't know what to call it.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. And it's just, part of it is creating a name, deciding what you want to name it.
What do you call yourself other than life coach?
I like to say a friend. Part of me kind of hides from that because it sounds so cheesy. But I don't know. I just think that whole concept is really comforting, and that's what I want to bring and do for people.
Oh, that's neat, because a trusted friend is what I say. And what I feel like I'm growing into is a spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
I'm growing into that label. And it's interesting, like the first thing that came to mind is my mom yelling at me, "Don't you know this is what you're supposed to do?" Like, I can think of at least 3 times that she's done that. And I'm like, really?
In relationship to being the spiritual teacher.
Yeah, to sharing my faith, to helping people with their beliefs. We do in this work dissolving, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in a less, I think one of the things that Martha does a really good job of is she's very gentle, and she treads very lightly because of her personal experiences with religion. But for me, I think what my mom was saying is that your faith is so strong that it's your duty to share it with us, to share it with your nephews, to help us to see what we can't see. And for us, it's around Catholicism. But in reality, the message for everyone, regardless of their religion, that I think all religions agree on, and I've heard Martha say it too. I think I've heard Martha say it, or I just made that up, is that all religions agree on love. And my message, 1,000 different ways, is that love is a choice. So we choose love. We move towards love. We take inspired action in that direction.
And I think tying that into what Martha had said in this chapter, especially in this idea of your art, is that you have to be loving yourself to a certain extent in order to find, if you're feeling lost, or if you're feeling confused, or you're not on a track, the only way to get on the right path again is to go in that place where you were loving yourself, loving life, enjoying it, and you were happy, and from there, that will guide you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this goes back to what you said about the list. This is so simple that we ignore it. Like, this is so, like the track, like sniffing out the tracks to your art is remembering what brings you joy. If you can get lost in a coloring book and hours pass, then that's a hint. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's a track. And for me, it's, I think I've mentioned this before, but when I was doing the research for my dissertation, I absolutely did not intend to ever finish, because the research part was the funnest part for me. Being lost in a sea of books and articles and data was like heaven on earth.
I'm laughing to myself because to a certain extent I could see that, but God, I can't imagine. And that just goes to show your art is definitely your art.
Everybody's is. Everybody's is. That doesn't make you like just butterflies?
Whoa.
So tell me what does.
Good God. This is the difficult part. This is where, even though you say it's the simplest thing, I still find it a bit tricky.
What do you get lost in addition to your cat?
Gosh, I don't get lost in my cat. Don't make me sound like a crazy cat lady.
You're not a crazy cat lady, but your cat was on your list.
I know, I was stretching for it. What do I get lost in? I kind of get lost in the idea of kind of exploring culture and mysticism and religion and herbal medicine. I sound like a kook saying that, but that's the fun stuff. Like, I love mine cosmovision. I love ancient wisdom. That's the fun stuff for me.
Oh, it is. I remember you sending me something that because you couldn't sleep and you started researching, what was it?
The Nahuales. Mm-hmm.
The Nahuales. Tell me about the Nahuales.
The idea, like a Nahual, if you look at there are many Mayan calendars, and there's a specific 20-day calendar that has a Nahual, like a representation for that day. And so, depending on a person's date of birth, they kind of embody that energy of the Nahual, and there is specific. I like to liken it to a horoscope because I feel like there's more to it than that, but essentially that's kind of the concept in a quick explanation of what it is.
And I think that I'm gonna say this. I think that you're relating it to a horoscope because of our culture, but I'll tell you that, and this is kind of eerie. But today I was in adoration, and I was reading a book on Mary, and the opening page literally said, that there's this blueprint, and that we have our current, and then we have our ideal, and we remember what that is, and I think that relates to what you're saying. There's a beauty, an individual uniqueness in each of us, and that helps us to see and remember that. But not I agree with you, not in the way that a horoscope does.
Mm-hmm. It's that strength, that kind of interconnectedness.
I love that. On the bottom of page 243, she quotes T.S. Eliot in the Four Quartets.
Yeah, I had that too.
We shall not cease from exploration. And this is the fun one. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.
And that's just so delicious in the sense that you can appreciate the suffering or the struggle She also, a few sentences up, she's comparing, a bad artist to a good artist to a great artist. And it's the great artists embrace the full catastrophe of our condition and find beyond it an even deeper truth of peace, healing, and redemption. I just love the full circle.
Yeah. And that is our hell and back.
Mm-hmm.
So on page 245, that's sort of a closing practice before we give our final thoughts to chapter 13. The paragraph is tracking into your future as a mender. I'm going to challenge us to say what comes to mind, unless you already have this filled in. Do you have yours filled in?
Mm-mm.
Neither do I.
Well, I had it like really lightly, but I'm such a freak about not writing in the books too much. So
Really?
yeah.
My books are all loved on.
Yeah.
They don't get good resale value. So, Sarah, how would you fill it in? Say it out loud and maybe just say what comes to your heart.
Let's see. I help people who are dealing with feeling lost or lack of direction by I just want to say by going within, by knowing themselves better. Or relearning, remembering themselves.
Yeah, remembering what they already know.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
What's yours?
Well, let's see. It's blank. I help people who are dealing with... And it says your hell. And I think my hell has been that I've always been on a search for the truth and reality. But the hell part has been that I've been confused and unsure of what to do. So what the right decision is. So I'm going to say I help people who are dealing with confusion by doing dreaming and scheming. That's the only thing that comes to mind. Like, I really, really feel like I'm having fun when I'm in dreaming and scheming. Imagination.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been making magic potions since you were itty bitty, so that makes sense.
That's what I'm told. So
cool.
what do you have as any final thoughts before we close this chapter? Chapter 13.
I guess now that I'm kind of thinking about, my hell and that whole process, the one thing that was always like an angst for me was a sense of security. And I think Martha points out, quite frankly, in this book, if you're looking for a sense of security in the modern world, the only way you're going to find that is by going within and finding yourself, finding your art, and then doing it in the world.
In a world without work.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I see this trend of these small and micro businesses coming up where people are doing their art within maybe the safety of having it as a side, they call it a side hustle or a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to have a name as long as you do it. You find it and you look for it.
And you enjoy it.
Yeah, you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that note, enjoy it.